Chapter 13. Live at the Regal Giraffe Theater.
I do hope you're not planning on just barging through the front door, miss.
No, Onion, that would be stupid. We're going through the roof. I've always been good at making plans, but sometimes they sound better in my head than in practice.
The roof, miss. How do you expect us to do that?
Well, I figured I would just hold on to you and you could float us right up there.
You know I cannot support your weight, miss.
I am a lady, Onion, and you never tell a lady they weigh too much. I tried to make myself sound regal. I mean, we are heading into a place where the word regal is in the name, even though I'm sure it's anything but.
Well, miss, maybe you should try to act like one sometimes. I highly doubt throwing yourself into danger is very ladylike.
He was right. I have been winding up in nasty predicaments lately, but usually they came to me. I think this is the first time where I really tried to put myself out there. Most of the stories I read had some kind of knight in shining armor rescuing a helpless damsel in distress. I did not want to be the one in distress, but rather the heroic knight who helps save the defenseless. I think that's why I was so adamant about trying to rescue this old buffalo, and I didn't even know who he was. For all I know, he could be part of some crazy cult that eats raiders and they're out for revenge. I shuddered at the thought. I really hope cannibalism is not a thing out there. That's where I draw the line. Sure, predators hunted and ate prey a very long time ago, but haven't we evolved past that at least? We were still a block away, but I could already see people outside the theater. Just like the other two groups, they were in sets of two, one carrying a javelin and the other one doing whatever they do. I could see at least 4 groups outside. I pulled out my scope and took a closer look. Well, fuck. Ain't going up that way even if I wanted to. Up until now, the largest gun I've ever seen was that sniper rifle. But this one takes the cake. It was massive, with 6 barrels attached in a circular fashion. I could see a belt of very large bullets coming out of one side. And to make things worse, there were 2 of them. There had to be another way in. On either side of the building were more buildings, but they were too far apart to try jumping from one to the other. Maybe I've read those Jack Savage books a bit too much. He almost always used the roof to invade an enemy base. But from a logical point of view, it made sense. With how heavily armed the front entrance looked, they were probably expecting a frontal assault. The rear could be a potential access point, but I didn't want to risk sneaking through an alley just to find more big guns back there. Wait, an alleyway. I took a closer look. A fire escape. Bingo. I have a plan now, Onion. Keep quiet and follow me, but keep your sensors open. We took our time getting to the alley. Thankfully, we both were small enough that the larger cars made for good cover. We almost ran into a few patrols, but managed to keep a low profile as they passed. I'm glad they didn't have any motion detectors like Onion, or else this rescue would be over before it even started. We finally got just outside the alleyway, completely undetected. I peered down the dark alley, but I couldn't see any movement. So far, it seemed clear. Anything, Onion?
No movement detected, miss.
Good. I took the lead. Onion's levitation device produced too little light to see anything clearly, but enough to have someone spot us in the shadowed alley. We were about 20 feet away from the alley, but I already was starting to step softly, watching where I walked so that way I didn't step on anything. I was so focused on this that I crashed into Onion as he darted in front of me. Onion! I tried to keep my voice as quiet as possible, but he had startled me.
Sorry, miss. I detected explosives directly in front of us.
Explosives? I crouched down to let my eyes focus. Within the shadow I saw a steady red light, and then another, and another. There were 4 in all, lined up in a row just a few feet into the alley. What were they?
Miss, my files indicate that these are fragmentation mines. Anti-personnel devices with proximity sensors that will detonate. Release not only a concussive blast, but also deadly shrapnel.
Mines? Well, fuck. How close is their proximity range, Onion?
Hard to tell, miss. My files show that military-grade ones have a detonation range of only a few feet, but we do not know if these have been altered in any way. Once the sensor is tripped, you have 3 seconds to disarm them or get caught in the explosion. And due to the distance between them, my calculations show that if one explodes, it will probably trigger the other 3.
Great. If I could only figure out how to activate bats whenever the hell I wanted to. I could disarm these things easily. At this rate, I'd never have any quiet time to tinker with my Pip-Boar. Okay, Olivia. Focus on the problem at hand. Let me just assume that these bastards are not smart enough to modify these mines, and they probably still have the original detection range on them. If that's the case, they are far enough apart that I can safely disarm one without triggering another. There's only one problem. Onion, does it say how to disarm the mine?
Apparently, despite being a very dangerous weapon, it is relatively easy to disarm one, miss. Next to the red light is a small button. You simply have to push that button, and it puts it into safe mode.
But since that button is probably well within the trigger range, I only have 3 seconds to find and push it. Sounds real easy.
We can always find another way. Or, better yet, not do this at all, miss.
No, Onion. I've made up my mind, and this is the best way in from what I can tell. If we spend too much time thinking of a better way, that'll increase the possibility of us being too late to save him.
My files tell me of another way to disarm the mine. One that you can do from a safe distance.
Oh? Why didn't you tell me that first?
Mines can be remotely detonated by shooting them.
That's out of the question. One explosion and the whole damn gang will be down our throats.
That's why I did not say it initially, miss.
Then why'd you even tell me?
Just trying to be helpful, miss.
Helpful my ass. But I should remember that. I doubt this will be my first time with a mine, and I may not have the time to sneak up and disarm them. I'm going in. Wish me luck. I looked towards the alleyway and swallowed. If I fail, well, I just hope it doesn't hurt too much. Of course, with my luck, it'll just blow off a leg or two, leaving me alive and at the mercy of these fuckers. Gah, Olivia, don't dwell on those thoughts. I will make it, and I will save him. Now, just take one step at a time. Just one step at a time. Beep, beep, beep. 3 seconds now. I moved into where the mine was and saw that the red light was no longer solid, but flashing in tune with the beeping noise. There! Next to the light was a small indented circle. That must be the button. I bent down swiftly and pushed it. The beeping stopped and the light turned solid green. No explosion, and I was still alive. That was a start. Now to do this 3 more times. I left the mine alone and continued to the next one. Mines 2 and 3 met the same fate. I disarmed them quickly. Now that I knew where the button was, it felt easy. A little too easy to do. Better not become too overconfident, or else I'll wind up losing an arm. The last one, on the other hand, scared the crap out of me. It started beeping like the other ones, and when I pushed the button, it kept beeping. I pushed it again and again, putting more pressure into it, and the beeping grew faster. I was dead. I leaped away, crashing to the ground, expecting to hear a loud boom. I lay on the ground for a few seconds, but other than the beeping stopping, there was no explosion, and I was still alive.
Elevated heartbeat detected. Increased levels of adrenaline detected. No threat detected. Activate bats.
Now you ask? No, thank you. Slightly irritated at my Pip-Boar's impeccable timing, I went back over to the mine and saw a small stream of smoke coming out of it. It must have been defective. I went back and picked up the other 3 and placed them in my bag, figuring I could make use of them at some point. But I left the dud alone. I didn't want to risk it blowing up when I tried to move it.
Please do not do that again, miss. And do you really have to start a collection? Every time you find something that explodes, you just toss it into your bag like you found a new toy.
Well, would you rather me have them, or would you rather these creeps have them?
Point taken, miss.
I hoisted my bag over my shoulder. It was starting to feel heavy. Between the mines, grenades, supplies, and everything else I keep picking up, the weight was starting to stack up. If it gets too heavy, maybe I'll just have to make Onion carry something. I did put a small storage compartment on him for a reason. I wonder if he would object to carrying the explosives. I checked the alleyway for any more red lights, but thankfully there were none. They must have set them up here as a deterrent, not thinking that someone would make it past them unharmed. A few feet ahead of us was our target. Sticking off the side of the building was a large overhanging platform that had a winding staircase that went all the way up to the top. However, I couldn't find any way to get up to the platform. Any suggestions, Onion?
Turn back.
Well, he was no help. I took a look around. The alleyway continued down for at least another 20 feet before it met a wall. It must turn towards the back of the theater. I couldn't see any lights, but that didn't mean that there wasn't anything, or anyone there. I turned my attention back to the platform. It was much darker this far in, and while I could see the outlines of everything, I couldn't make out too much detail. I decided to risk it. I turned on my pip-roll light and set it to the lowest setting. It was very dim, but it gave me enough light to let my eyes adjust properly. I saw that underneath the platform was the outline of some kind of door. The hinges were on the outside, suggesting that it opened towards the ground. At the other end of the door, I saw a chain hanging down. It was out of my reach, but I was a very good jumper. I memorized where it was and turned off my light. I didn't want to risk attracting any attention. I backed up and put all my strength into my forward jump. The first attempt failed as I barely got within reach. I tried again. It took me 2 more attempts before I was able to grab hold of the chain. I guess I wasn't as rested as I thought. When I finally grabbed it, the entire chain slowly lowered me down, and the door, to the ground. Once the door was fully open, a ladder extended downwards. The ladder was large enough to support someone larger than myself, like maybe a wolf or something. But I doubt it could be used by anyone like an elephant or a rhino. There had to be one for larger mammals somewhere. I slapped my forehead. Stop trying to be a safety inspector, Olivia. This is not the time nor the place. I really gotta stop letting my mind wander like that. I grabbed the ladder and started to ascend. Onion floated slowly behind me, keeping his power low to prevent too much ambient noise or light. The building was at least 5 stories tall, and the climb took a little bit. Every other story I stopped and looked down to make sure that no one had gone down the alleyway. So far, there was no one. I had a feeling that since they assumed the mines were still there, that they would leave it out of their patrols. Onion sensors so far hadn't picked up anything either as we neared the top of the building. There were no windows on the sides, so the roof must have had some sort of entrance. Or else why would they even have a fire escape? I reached the final set of stairs and glad that I stopped and looked around because sitting near the top of the stairs was a small object with a solid red light. They had a mine up here? I told Onion to sit tight as I slowly crept up on the mine. Beep, beep, beep. I pushed the button and the light went green. Before I could grab the mine, I heard something. Or should I say, someone. Willie! I think I heard something! Fuck! They had people on the roof? I bent my ears down and risked taking a look.
Huh? I didn't hear anything. I think your paranoia is finally getting to you.
I couldn't see anyone, but I heard at least 2 voices. The roof was relatively flat, but there were some large metal boxes all over it blocking my line of sight. I ducked my head down and looked at Onion. There are at least 2 mammals up here. Do you detect any more?
No, miss. I actually don't detect any movement at all.
That means they're not actively looking for someone. Well, that's good. I could use that to my advantage. I slowly took off my backpack and dropped it over the ledge of the roof. Onion, there are some large boxes that would provide good cover. I'm going to scout around and see what we're up against. You power down your levitator and wait for my signal.
Do be careful, miss.
I smiled at Onion to give him reassurance and then turned towards the roof again. I took another peek to make sure it was still safe, and then took a quick leap over the edge. I landed right beside my bag and I grabbed it. Keeping it in my paw, I snuck over to the closest box. I set my bag beside it and noticed that the box still had tubes that connected it to the roof. Some sort of air system, perhaps? I peeked over the side closest to the front of the building. I could see the backside of the large sign, and I saw a white fox sitting on a chair facing the ledge. There were a bunch of empty bottles next to him, and I could see that he was drinking something. Next to him was a very large tube-like item. I took out my scope and got a better look. I didn't need Onion to tell me what that was. It was a missile launcher. While I wasn't that knowledgeable about weapons, since I never needed to be, many of the ones that I've seen so far have baffled me, but this thing? I've seen it before. In a book. Specifically the cover of the third Jack Savage book. Pictured on it was a giant bear firing a missile at Jack as he drove his car off a ledge. Funny thing is that scene was nowhere in the book, but I was able to put two and two together and figure out that that was the weapon that was dangerous. No wonder there was that wreckage in the street. These guys must have been prepared for an aerial attack. I tried to see where the other voice came from, but so far I could only see the fox. I had two choices. Either wait it out until I could determine where the other one was, provided that there were only two up here, or go after the fox and go from there. The only thing I did notice was that there was no javelin. So unless it was out of sight, I'll make the assumption that the other one was wielding it. That could complicate things if I'm not careful. I turned on my shortwave communicator and pinged Onion.
I read you, miss.
Onion, I need you to do me a favor. I know you hate it when I ask you to be bait, but can you be bait? I swore I heard a sigh from him.
Yes, miss. What do you want me to do this time?
There's a fox directly in front of me, about 50 feet away, give or take. I haven't made a tab on the other one yet. So I need you to provide a distraction so I can figure out where he is. What I need you to do is hover over the building behind me. Once I give the signal, go high above the building as you can and zip across the building to the opposite side. When you're directly over this building, hit your levitator to the max power, briefly, so that the light and noise can distract them. Once you get to the other building, find a safe place and wait for me.
Yes, miss. But this better not result in any more dents.
Oh, and sync your sensor with my Pip-Bore, so that way I can see where movement occurs. After a few seconds, my Pip-Bore screen had an additional signal on it. I pushed the button on the screen and now was seeing a basic overlay of the terrain. There was nothing on it yet, but hopefully that would change. I took out my gun and made sure it was fully loaded. I hoped there would be no need for bats, but it better be available if I do. I peeked around both sides of the metal box. The fox was still sitting in his chair, and there was no sign of the other one. It's now or never. Now, Onion! I watched the screen as I heard a quick humming noise drift overhead. The noise increased a few decibels as he floated over my head. What the fuck is that thing? Zach, are you seeing this? I peeked over. The fox had jumped out of his chair and was now staring at the sky. I looked back at the screen, and his movement registered on Onion's sensors.
What now, Willie? You seen flying saucers? What the hell? Is that a firebug?
I could tell the voice was coming from near the other side of the roof. I checked the sensors. Still no movement. Come on, fucker, do something.
Firebug? That ain't no firebug, it's a flying saucer! I told you they were real! Where'd you put my tinfoil hat? I know I brought it for a reason. Zach, where the hell's my hat? What, that stupid thing? I told you 100 times there ain't no such things as aliens. If there were, why the hell would they be visiting this dump of a world? Zach, you fucker, get over here and help me find my hat! Alright, you ass. I'll help you find it. It's not like those Guardian fuckers are gonna try anything anyway soon as we blew up their last bird out of the sky.
Finally. The other one appeared on sensors. Their blips were both moving towards the center of the roof. I peeked back over where the fox was sitting. Good, he left his launcher. After making sure that the blips were not moving back, I quickly moved forward to where the fox was sitting. Now that I had a better view, I saw that there were wooden crates scattered all over the roof. Some of them were stacked 2 or even 3 high, giving me plenty of cover. My curiosity was starting to get the better of me. I really wanted to know what was inside them. But first I needed to subdue these 2. From what I've already seen, I would have no remorse killing them. And I'm sure they'd feel the same way towards me. I darted from box to box, keeping my eye on my pit boar. Both dots were now moving towards the side of the building where Onion went. Still far enough from me, but still out of sight. I reached the area where the chair was and went for the launcher. It was large and bulky, but unlike the sniper, it was meant for someone much smaller. Maybe not a rabbit, but small enough. I put my bag down and hefted it up. I didn't know how to use it, but they didn't know that. I also saw something shining in the light of the sun. I bent down and picked it up. My pit boar beeped as I noticed the dots moving towards my position. Within a few seconds, I saw the fox walking back, muttering something to himself under his breath. Looking for this? I held up the small hat made out of tinfoil. My hat! Where did you... Wait, who the fuck are you? I lowered the launcher towards him as his friend appeared. It was one of the biggest wolves I had ever seen. His fur was almost a metallic gray, and he had muscles that would make Bo jealous. He had the javelin in his paw, but he had it at his side. He probably wasn't expecting someone to be up here. My paranoid friend asked you a question. I'm not paranoid, they do exist. You're getting off track, Willie. Yeah. Like I asked before, who the fuck are you? I'm your worst nightmare, Willie. I was feeling in the zone, like I was Jack Savage himself. How did you know my name? She's one of them. I told you, Zach. They can read our minds. The wolf slapped Willie across the face. I told you there ain't no aliens. She must have just overheard us, that's how. If you do not surrender and put your weapons down, I will blow you off this roof. I already took care of your friends Arnie and Tony. I doubt you two would put up much of a fight. Arnie and Tony? The fuck you talking about? They just left like 45 minutes ago. You're bluffing. Well, they are dead. But whether you believe me or not is pretty moot when I have a fucking missile launcher pointed at your face. I was feeling really good. Maybe I wouldn't have to resort to violence. Maybe they just put down their weapons and surrender peacefully. Oh, I'm shaking in my fur, little bunny. You hear that, Zach? She's gonna shoot us with a fucking empty rocket launcher. Get her. Empty? But I pulled the trigger. Nothing. Fuck! Zach lifted the javelin and threw it at me. I tried to jump out of the way, but he must have anticipated that. The javelin went right between my legs, just missing my left one and right through the bottom of my trench coat, pinning it and me to the floor of the roof. I tried to shake off the coat, but I saw the fox pulling out a pistol. He had a clear shot of me.
Imminent threat detected. Activate bats?
Yes. I was getting too used to this. Maybe Onion was right and I was growing too attached to this. I couldn't control it, but I always used it when I needed to. I was starting to get better with my gun before I discovered this feature. But now, I'm starting to wonder if this would hurt me in the long run. I just wasted 2 of my 6 seconds. Concentrate, Olivia. I grabbed my gun and fired. I didn't even check my pit boar, but it didn't matter. The fox fell down as the bullet made contact. I turned towards the wolf and I saw him charging me. I could feel the chemicals wearing off. I only had time for 1 shot. Even in my heightened state, the wolf was quick, bobbing his head from side to side as he ran. I couldn't get a clear shot, so I did the next best thing. I pulled the trigger. I heard him yelp as time seemed to speed up. He went crashing forward as I saw blood leaking from his leg. His forward momentum was too much for him to stop. He flew past me right into the brick ledge of the roof. Seconds later, I heard a splat come from below. And then I heard yelling. Fuck, it's Zach! Quick, get a team to the roof! Onion, I think they know we're here. Meet me back at the roof. We need to make this quick.
Right away, miss.
Now the whole place was alerted. So much for a quiet rescue. I grabbed my bag and started to look for an exit. I found it rather quick. A small bump in the roof with a metal door. I opened the door, and before I could enter it, I heard the sound of animals running up the stairs. I turned around and shut the door. This was going to be much harder than I thought. Onion, we're trapped. There's an unknown number of mammals heading up here.
My sensors are going crazy, miss. I detect at least a dozen. But my sensors do not detect height. I have no idea where they are in relation to us.
Great. Just great. Any minute now they'll burst through that door. I was closer to the other side of the roof and could make out the same kind of stairs from before. There must have been another fire escape. But for all I knew, it could be mine too. Oh yeah, I forgot. I opened my bag and took out 2 of the mines. I pushed the button and the light slowly flashed red. I dropped it in front of the door and did the same with the other. And then I ran. Onion, mine, move! I couldn't quite get the words out, but he must have understood. He was right behind me. We both rushed behind one of the metal boxes. We waited. Waiting was the worst part. When you wait for something, time seems to slow down to a sloth's pace. And not like when I'm in bats. That at least makes you feel quick. But rather everything, even yourself, slows. Seconds feel like minutes, and minutes feel beep, 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 beep. I doubt they heard the noise, and even if they did, by the time they opened the door, it was too late. The explosion was loud. Not as loud as the bag of explosives from the stadium, but loud enough that if not everyone knew I was here, they did now. I expect the patrols will be coming back soon. I need to find that buffalo before that happens, provided they don't kill him first. I moved towards the door and saw a giant hole in the roof. There was at least 3 bodies lying on the edge of the hole. I couldn't tell if they were dead, but they weren't moving. I didn't hear any more noises coming from the stairs. I chanced to peek through the hole. The room below was empty. Charred paper scattered everywhere, along with 2 more bodies. I saw a couple large safes, along with a computer terminal. And since I didn't see anyone alive, I decided to jump below rather than use the stairs. I landed with a small thud as the floor creaked below my feet. I looked around the room. It was large enough to comfortably fit a bear, but small enough that not too many could fit here at once. There was a desk and a single door on the other side of where I stood. I checked the 2 bodies and found no signs of a heartbeat. They were definitely dead. One of them, a weasel of sorts, had a leathery jacket with a giant white skull and crossbones painted across the front. His pants had large pockets in them, and I saw something metallic sticking out of one of them. I chanced to look. It was a grenade. 10 of them, to be exact. This little guy was carrying 10 grenades in his pants. I'm so glad they didn't go off. I was already weighed down with some, so I decided against grabbing them. The other corpse was a javelin carrier. This one was a zebra. He was dressed in a similar fashion to the weasel, along with the same skull and crossbones on his jacket. This one, however, didn't appear to be carrying any other weapon other than the javelin that lay beside him. I was tempted to grab it, but I knew that I would not be physically fit enough to wield one. Maybe if I can find a rabbit carrying one.
Miss, are you okay?
I'm fine. These guys, however, are not. I told you those mines would come in handy.
Unfortunately, they seem to have alerted everyone to us. I thought you said this was going to be silent.
Well, looks like fate has other plans for us, Onion. I went over to the door and checked it. It was locked, but thankfully I was on the right side of the lock. I turned the bolt on the door and opened it slowly. It creaked loudly. I stopped opening it halfway and waited to see if anyone else would hear it. After a few seconds, I deemed it safe enough to finish opening it, enough for both of us to pass. On the other side of the door was a long, thin hallway. The office looked like it was designed for a single large mammal, and so did the hallway. While it was a good size for someone of my size, a bear or a rhino would have to go single file if more than one were traveling these halls. The hallway was rather sparse, save for the 2 doors. One of them was halfway down the hall, and upon further investigation, it looked more like an arched window than a door. I turned the handle and opened it, much quieter than the other one, and I took a peek through. This window looked directly over the theater stage. I could see the stage clearly, despite it being dimly lit. A pair of curtains were drawn back and tied off to the side. and sitting in the middle of the stadium, tied to a chair, was a buffalo. I pulled out my scope. He was slumped over with his eyes closed. His fur was grayish-white, showing his age. Both horns were broken, leaving small stubs. He had a long braided beard that was stark white. I could see that he was wearing nothing from the waist up, his bare chest showing that despite his age, he was still fairly muscular. Across his chest, however, were large gashes. Most of them were bleeding. Next to him stood an elephant, with a large, tightly braided rope held in its trunk. On the other side of the elephant were 2 tigers, both wielding javelins. I couldn't see anyone else. But then I heard a loud slam coming from the opposite side of the room.
"Bailey, we got intruders. I don't know who it is, but they came from the roof."
"It's the Steel Guardians again." Her voice echoed through the room. She spoke very calmly, despite no one knowing exactly what was going on.
I don't think so. Patrols have not reported any activity yet, but they did find Arnie and Tony. They're dead."
"Dead? How can that be? Tony was our strongest thrower." She might have seemed calm before, but after hearing the news about my earlier run-in, her voice started to break and her tone rose dramatically. Was he really that formidable? Either I'm better than I thought, or I was just lucky. I really hope my luck doesn't run out anytime soon. I slowly closed the window. I knew where the buffalo was, and I can't stay here too long. Eventually someone will find me if I stay in one place. Down the hall was the only other door, and I was not about to go back, so I pushed forward. I moved as quietly as possible, the wooden floor creaking with every other step. I had to stop occasionally to make sure that no one heard me. Onion sensors were still being broadcasted to my Pip-Boar, but it wasn't that helpful. I could see at least half a dozen dots moving sporadically, but I couldn't tell where their relation was to me. When I reached the door, I opened it slightly. It squeaked, but only a little. On the other side of the door was a large staircase. It went down at least 2 floors before making a sharp turn. Just like the floor, every other step made a small squeak. I saw that I was leaving paw prints on the steps. I guess these guys never made their way up here. I had to take my time, each squeak risking detection. I finally made it to the bend in the stairs. I took a look down and saw that there was another floor to go. At the bottom of these steps, however, was a doorway. The door was open and a light shone through. I stopped and listened for any signs of movement. And when I was satisfied, I continued down, taking each step more carefully. By the time I got to the bottom, I was certain that I had made it undetected. Now I just need to go through who knows how many other enemies, get past 2 dangerous-looking tigers and their elephant companion, and free the buffalo, and make it out of here alive. Sounds easy enough. Unfortunately, I wasn't about to have it easy. On the other side of the door, standing about 10 feet away, were 6 mammals. 3 of them had their javelins at the ready, while the other 3 had some kind of rifle pointed at me. I heard some thumping noises above me, and I could tell the floorboards above me were seeing a lot of action. I couldn't go forwards, and I couldn't go back. I was trapped. Fuck my life. I heard a loud stomping coming from behind the 6 and saw the elephant was coming up behind them, the whip still in her trunk. The group split down the middle as she passed through and took a look at me. In each hoof was a knife, both dripping with blood. She looked me up and down, taking me in before smiling. "Well now, it's just a cute little bunny. And here I was expecting something a little more... well, more. I don't know who you are, or how you got past our defenses, but it was futile." Her smile grew as she licked some of the blood from the knives. She lifted it up towards me as she spoke very softly. "Kill her.